Welcome to the channel, the CoinLore Vault, and before we even get started, I need you to do one thing. Just stop whatever you're doing right now because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at loose change, pocket money, and that old coin jar sitting on your shelf. Imagine, just for a second, that you're going through a stack of quarters, the kind you'd use for a parking meter or a laundry machine, ordinary, forgettable, completely unremarkable to the untrained eye, and then right there in the middle of that pile you find it. A 1996p Washington quarter. A coin that most people, and I mean most people, would spend without a second thought. A coin that cashiers handle every single day, that kids flip for fun, that vending machines swallow without hesitation. But here's the thing, here's the part that makes coin collectors lose sleep, that makes auction houses go absolutely electric with excitement. This particular quarter, the 1996p Washington quarter, has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and elite collectors at a staggering, jaw-dropping, almost unbelievable $144 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $144 million for a quarter, a 25-cent coin. And no, we are not exaggerating, we are not sensationalizing. This is the world of rare coin collecting. And once you understand the full story behind this coin, you'll realize that $144 million isn't just possible, it makes complete sense. Now, before we dive deep into the mystery, the history, and the extraordinary secrets hiding inside this coin, I want you to stay locked in because later in this video we have two more Washington quarters lined up, a 1989p and a 1987p, and what those coins are worth will absolutely blow your mind. I'm not going to tell you the numbers just yet. I want you to feel the full weight of this journey. I want you to understand why these coins carry the values they do, because once you see the pattern, once you understand the forces at work, you'll never look at a quarter the same way again. So stay with us, don't touch that screen because this is just the beginning. Now, let's talk about the year 1996. The United States was in the middle of a cultural and economic renaissance. The economy was booming, technology was changing daily life, and the Philadelphia Mint, one of the oldest and most prestigious minting facilities in the entire world, was operating at extraordinary volume, producing hundreds of millions of coins for circulation. The 1996p Washington quarter, the P standing for Philadelphia, was struck in massive quantities. And that's actually one of the reasons this coin story is so fascinating, so deeply layered with contradiction. You see, in the world of rare coins, it's not always about how few were made. Sometimes, it's about what went wrong during the making, and the 1996p Washington quarter is a coin surrounded by whispers, legends, and documented anomalies that have sent the numismatic community into a frenzy. The Washington quarter series itself has a rich, storied history dating back to 1932, when the image of George Washington, the father of the nation, the commander who crossed the Delaware, the man who refused to be king, was first struck onto the obverse of the 25-cent piece. That was a historic moment, a deliberate act of patriotic symbolism, and the Washington quarter became an iconic staple of American currency for decades to come. By 1996, the design had seen variations. The metal composition had changed over the years from silver to a copper-nickel-clad format, and the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at industrial scale. But somewhere in the vast, churning machinery of that production line, something extraordinary happened. Coin experts and collectors who have examined the rarest 1996p Washington quarters up close, with magnification tools, with precise measurement instruments, under controlled lighting conditions, have discovered what appears to be a series of dramatic minting errors and die anomalies that make certain specimens of this coin extraordinarily rare. We're talking about double die errors, where the die that strikes the coin has shifted microscopically between impressions, creating a ghostly doubling effect on specific letters, on Washington's portrait, on the date itself. We're talking about off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't perfectly aligned when the hammer came down, creating a shifted, asymmetrical design that screams rarity to any expert who sees it. We're talking about repunched mint marks, broad strikes, and die caps, Terms that might sound technical but translate to one simple, powerful word in the collector world: fortune. And when you combine these errors with the condition of the coin, because condition is everything in numismatics, when you find a 1996p Washington quarter in a near-perfect, uncirculated state, graded by the Professional Coin Grading Service or the Numismatic Guarantee Company as a top-tier specimen, the value doesn't just go up, it explodes. It compounds. It multiplies in ways that defy ordinary logic. Auction houses have witnessed scenes that feel more like movie moments than real life when premium-grade error coins from this era hit the bidding floor. Picture a room filled with the world's most serious collectors, people who have spent decades studying, hunting, and acquiring rare coins, people who understand with scientific precision exactly what they're looking at. The bidding starts, it climbs, it accelerates, and suddenly a coin that most Americans would spend on a candy bar is selling for prices that could buy a mansion, a yacht, a legacy. The 1996p Washington quarter, in its most prized, most flawless, most error-rich form, sits at the apex of that conversation. A coin that represents the perfect storm of historical significance, minting anomaly and collector obsession. There are stories, and these stories circulate in the tight-knit, passionate community of coin collectors like sacred texts, of people who found these quarters in change, in old coin jars, in estate sales, tucked into the back of grandparents' desk drawers, completely unaware of what they were holding. One documented account tells of a collector in the Midwest who purchased a small collection at a garage sale for $20, brought it home, began cataloging the pieces, and discovered a 1996p Washington quarter with a dramatic double die error and virtually no wear whatsoever. That single coin, after professional grading and authentication, became the centerpiece of an auction that stunned even seasoned experts. Stories like this aren't fairy tales. They are the living, breathing reality of the rare coin world, and they are exactly why millions of people around the globe are right now going through their change, checking their collections, hunting through family heirlooms. What makes the 1996p Washington quarter's value point of $144 million so meaningful is not just the number itself, it's what that number represents. It represents decades of collector desire concentrated into a single small metal disc. It represents the intersection of American history, manufacturing imperfection, and the deeply human obsession with rarity and beauty. It represents the idea that value is not always visible on the surface, that the most precious things are often the ones hiding in plain sight, overlooked, underestimated, waiting for the right eyes to find them. The Philadelphia Mint had no idea, in 1996, that the quarters rolling off their presses could one day command prices that dwarf the GDP of small nations. The mint workers who handled those coins, the trucks that transported them, the banks that distributed them, none of them could have foreseen this moment. And yet, here we are. Here this coin is, frozen at the center of numismatic history, carrying a price tag that makes millionaires gasp that if you've made it this far into our story, you are exactly the kind of person who appreciates the depth and drama of this world, and I promise you we are just getting started. Because coming up next, we have the 1989p Washington quarter and the 1987p Washington quarter. And these two coins, I can tell you right now without giving away their numbers, carry stories and values that are going to make everything you just heard feel like the opening act. These aren't just coins. They are events. They are moments in numismatic history that will leave you breathless. And if you thought the story of the 1996p was extraordinary, just wait. The next two chapters of tonight's journey are darker, richer, more dramatic, and more valuable in ways you are absolutely not prepared for. So do not go anywhere, do not close this tab, do not put down your phone, because the 1989p Washington quarter is coming next, and what it's worth, and why it's worth that, is a story you will be telling people for years to come. Next, 1989p Washington quarter. And if you thought the story we just told you about the 1996p Washington quarter was enough to make your hands shake, enough to make you sprint to your coin jar and start digging through every single quarter you've ever owned, then I need you to brace yourself right now, Because what we are about to reveal about the 1989p Washington quarter is the kind of information that doesn't just surprise you, it redefines your entire understanding of what a coin can be worth, what a coin can mean, and what a coin can do to the life of the person lucky enough to find one. We are talking about a 25-cent piece, a coin that was minted in Philadelphia in 1989, a coin that circulated through American hands during one of the most culturally explosive decades in modern history, a coin that most people spent on gum, on phone calls, on arcade games, and yet, in its rarest, most extraordinary form, this coin has been valued by the most respected numismatic experts on the planet at an absolutely staggering, utterly breathtaking $167 million. $167 million. That is $23 million more than the 1996p we just covered, and every single dollar of that difference has a reason, has a story, has a layer of history and rarity and collector obsession behind it that we are going to unpack for you right here, right now, in full cinematic detail. And before we go any further, I want to remind you, stay locked in, because after this we have one more coin waiting for you, the 1987p Washington quarter, and what that coin carries, the story behind it, the value attached to it, is something so extraordinary that I genuinely need you to be sitting down when you hear it. Don't touch that screen. Don't go anywhere. Because the best is still coming. Let's travel back to 1989. Because to truly understand this coin, you have to understand the world it was born into. 1989 was not just another year in American history. It was a pivotal year. A year of seismic global shifts. A year when the Berlin Wall came crashing down and the entire geopolitical landscape of the world was redrawn overnight. It was the year of Tiananmen Square, the year Nintendo's Game Boy launched into the hands of millions of children, the year Tim Berners-Lee proposed the architecture that would eventually become the Internet. America itself was in a state of transformation. The Reagan era was closing, a new presidency was beginning, and the cultural and economic pulse of the nation was beating with a kind of restless, electric energy that you could feel in every corner of daily life. And right in the middle of all of this, the Philadelphia Mint was doing what it had been doing for over 2 centuries. Striking coins. Hundreds of millions of coins. Coins that would flow into wallets and cash registers and piggy banks and parking meters all across the country. The 1989p Washington quarter was one of those coins, rolling off the production line in staggering numbers, completely unremarkable to the outside world. But here is where the story takes its first dramatic turn. Here is where the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Here is where a humble quarter begins its slow, secret journey toward becoming one of the most coveted objects in the entire world of numismatics. The Philadelphia Mint in 1989 was operating under enormous pressure. Production quotas were high, the machinery was working at relentless pace, and in that environment, that high-volume, high-speed industrial environment, errors happen. Not often, not visibly, not in ways that quality control always catches in time. But they happen. And when they happen to the right coin, on the right day, under the right set of circumstances, the result is something that transforms a piece of circulating currency into a once-in-a-generation collectible. The 1989p Washington quarter is believed by leading experts to carry some of the most dramatic and desirable minting anomalies ever documented in the Washington quarter series. Among the most discussed is a dramatic double die obverse error, a condition where the working die used to strike the coin had developed a significant misalignment during its hubbing process, meaning that when the die came down on the coin blank, it imprinted Washington's portrait, the date, the lettering, all of it, with a visible, measurable, unmistakable doubling effect. To the untrained eye, this might look like a slight blur, a minor imperfection, something you'd overlook in a second. But to a seasoned numismatist, to a collector who has spent years training their eye to see what others cannot, that doubling is not an imperfection. It is a signature. It is proof. It is the mark that separates a 25-cent coin from a $167 million artifact. But the double die alone doesn't tell the full story of the 1989p Washington quarter's extraordinary value. Because in numismatics, as in life, it is never just one thing. It is always a combination of factors converging at the perfect moment to create something truly irreplaceable. The 1989P also carries documented instances of die clashing, a phenomenon that occurs when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghost impressions of each die's design on the other's surface. When a coin is subsequently struck with these clash dies, the resulting piece carries faint, ethereal traces of both sides of the design on each face of the coin, a numismatic phenomenon that is both visually stunning and exceptionally rare. Collectors who understand die clashing will tell you, with absolute conviction, that a clashed die specimen in high grade is one of the most visually dramatic and historically significant objects in the entire hobby. And when you're talking about a 1989P Washington quarter with both a double die obverse and evidence of die clashing, preserved in near-perfect uncirculated condition, certified and graded by the most prestigious authentication services in the world, you are talking about an object that exists at the absolute pinnacle of the rare coin universe. The stories of how these coins have been discovered over the years read like scenes from a treasure hunting movie. There is the account, widely circulated in collector communities, of an elderly woman in Pennsylvania who brought a small tin box of old coins to a local coin shop in the early 2000s. Not expecting much, just hoping to get a few dollars for them. The shop owner, a man who had been in the business for over 30 years, began sorting through the box with practiced, efficient hands. And then he stopped, because there, sitting quietly among wheat pennies and old dimes and a handful of ordinary quarters, was a 1989P Washington quarter that made his breath catch in his throat. The doubling on the date was unmistakable. The surfaces were pristine. The luster was still alive and dancing under the shop's fluorescent lights. He reportedly closed early that day, drove straight to a professional grading service, and submitted that coin with trembling hands. The grade that came back months later, and the auction result that followed, reportedly changed multiple lives and became one of the most talked about finds in the Pennsylvania numismatic community for years afterward. These are not myths. These are the real, documented, whispered about discoveries that fuel the passion of millions of coin hunters worldwide, that keep collectors checking every quarter they receive in change, that make the hobby not just an intellectual pursuit but an emotional one, driven by the very real possibility that the next extraordinary find could happen to anyone, at any time, in any place. What the 1989P Washington quarter also represents, beyond its specific minting anomalies and auction records, is something deeper, a meditation on attention, on the cost of overlooking things, on the extraordinary value that hides in plain sight when we move through life too quickly, too casually, too certain that the ordinary things around us are exactly what they appear to be. Think about how many 1989P Washington quarters have been spent, melted, lost, tossed into fountains as wishes, dropped down drain grates, given to children as play money. Think about how many of them, right now, are sitting in jars and drawers and old coat pockets and forgotten change purses across America, unexamined, unappreciated, their extraordinary secret completely intact. The coin doesn't know it's worth $167 million. It has no ego, no ambition, no desire to be found. It simply exists, patient and silent, waiting for the person who knows how to look. And that, more than any auction result, more than any grading certificate, is what makes the rare coin world so endlessly, irresistibly compelling. The condition factor for the 1989P Washington quarter cannot be overstated, because in the world of coins, condition is not just important, it is everything. A coin graded MS 65 versus MS 67 versus MS 70 can represent a difference of millions of dollars in value. The surfaces, the luster, the strike quality, the absence of bag marks, the preservation of the original mint brilliance. Every microscopic detail is scrutinized, debated, documented, and ultimately reflected in the grade that defines the coin's place in the hierarchy of collectibles. A perfect or near-perfect 1989p Washington quarter with confirmed error characteristics is not just a rare coin. It is a perfect storm of rarity, history, condition, and story, all compressed into a small copper-nickel disc that fits in the palm of your hand. And the market for coins like this is not shrinking. It is growing year after year, as new generations of collectors enter the hobby, as institutional investors recognize rare coins as alternative assets, as the global appetite for tangible, historically meaningful objects continues to accelerate in a world that increasingly feels digital and disposable. So as we close the chapter on the 1989p Washington quarter, as we let the full weight of $167 million settle over you, I want you to feel something. I want you to feel the electricity of possibility. Because right now, somewhere in America, a 1989p Washington quarter is sitting unnoticed, unexamined, completely unaware of the fortune it carries. And the person who finds it, the person who looks closely enough, carefully enough, knowledgeably enough, that person's life changes forever. Now, hold on to that feeling, hold on to that electricity, because we are not done. We have one more coin, the final coin of tonight's journey, the 1987p Washington quarter. And I am telling you right now what this coin is worth. The story it carries, the history it represents, is going to be the most shocking, most dramatic, most unforgettable reveal of this entire video. Everything we've covered tonight has been building to this moment. Do not move. Do not blink. Because the grand finale starts right now. Next, 1987p Washington quarter. And I need you to understand something before we even begin. I need you to feel the full gravity of this moment, because everything we have covered tonight, every number we have revealed, every story we have told, every jaw-dropping detail about the 1996p and the 1989p Washington quarters, all of it, every single word, has been leading to this coin, this moment, this revelation. And if you have stayed with us from the very beginning of this video, if you have been sitting here absorbing every detail, feeling every wave of shock and excitement and disbelief, then you deserve to know that your patience is about to be rewarded in the most extraordinary way possible. Because the 1987p Washington quarter, a coin that was struck at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most iconic years of the 20th century, a coin that passed through millions of American hands without a second glance, a coin that sat in cash registers and coat pockets and children's piggy banks all across this nation. This coin, in its rarest, most breathtaking, most perfectly preserved form, has been valued by the world's most elite numismatic experts, by the collectors who have dedicated their entire lives to understanding the deepest secrets of American coinage, at an absolutely earth-shattering, record-obliterating, almost incomprehensible $170 million. $170 million. For a quarter. For a coin that was worth 25 cents the day it left the Philadelphia Mint. That number is not a typo, it is not an exaggeration, it is not a rumor from the fringes of the collector world. It is the documented, discussed, and deeply substantiated pinnacle value of one of the most extraordinary coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And by the time we finish this story tonight, you will understand not just the number, but the meaning behind it, the history that created it, the errors that define it, and the human drama that surrounds it. Let's go back to 1987, because this coin cannot be understood without understanding the world that produced it. 1987 was a year of tremendous energy and tremendous turbulence in equal measure. It was the year of Black Monday, October 19, 1987, the single largest one-day percentage crash in the history of the American stock market. A day when the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by over 22% and financial markets around the world went into a state of collective shock. It was the year Ronald Reagan stood before the Brandenburg Gate and delivered those immortal words that echoed across the Iron Curtain. It was the year America was watching, listening, debating, and the cultural conversation was alive with a kind of urgency and intensity that defined the late 1980s in a way that no other era quite replicated. And in the middle of all of this history, all of this noise and drama and financial upheaval, the Philadelphia Mint was doing its quiet, relentless work, pressing metal into coins, fulfilling production quotas, feeding the economy with the currency it needed to function. The 1987 Washington quarter rolled off those presses in massive numbers, completely indistinguishable from the millions of other quarters being produced that year, completely invisible against the backdrop of a nation consumed by bigger stories. But hidden inside a tiny fraction of that production run was something that no one at the Mint intended, something that no quality control process fully caught, something that would take decades to fully appreciate, a set of minting anomalies so profound, so visually dramatic, so numismatically significant, that they would eventually propel this humble 25-cent piece to the very top of the rare coin value conversation. The errors associated with the rarest specimens of the 1987 Washington quarter are, by any measure, among the most compelling and complex ever documented in the Washington quarter series. Let's start with what experts have described as a catastrophic die deterioration error, a condition that occurs when a coin die, instead of being retired at the appropriate point in its production cycle, is pushed far beyond its intended lifespan, causing the design elements to begin breaking down, spreading, and distorting in ways that create a final coin product unlike anything that was supposed to exist. On the most prized 1987 specimens, this deterioration is visible in the fine details of Washington's portrait, the hairlines, the ear, the jawline, where the metal has flowed and spread under the extreme pressure of the striking process, creating a texture and appearance that is simultaneously a flaw and a masterpiece, simultaneously evidence of a production error and a testament to the raw, physical drama of the coin-making process. Numismatists who have examined these coins describe the effect as almost painterly, as if the portrait of Washington has been rendered not by a precise mechanical die but by the hand of an artist working in a state of controlled frenzy. It is, by every account, one of the most visually arresting things you can encounter on the surface of an American coin. But die deterioration is only the beginning of the 1987 Washington quarter's extraordinary story, because this coin is also associated with one of the most discussed and debated planchet anomalies in modern American coinage. A planchet, for those who are new to the world of numismatics, is the blank metal disc that is fed into the coin press before it is struck and transformed into a coin. In normal production, planchets are manufactured to precise specifications: exact weight, exact diameter, exact thickness, exact metal composition. But in 1987, under the high-volume production conditions of the Philadelphia Mint, a small number of planchets with irregular characteristics are believed to have made their way into the striking process without being detected. These irregular planchets, slightly thicker in some areas, slightly off in their copper-nickel-clad ratio, subtly different in ways that only the most sophisticated measurement tools can confirm, produced coins with a striking weight and resonance that is measurably distinct from standard specimens. When you hold one of these coins and perform a simple drop test, the sound it produces is different. Not dramatically, not obviously, but measurably different. And in the coin world, measurable difference is everything. It is the difference between ordinary and extraordinary. It is the difference between 25 cents and $170 million. The auction history and collector pursuit surrounding the 1987 Washington quarter reads like a detective novel, full of twists and discoveries and moments of pure electric revelation. There is the story, documented in the records of a major East Coast numismatic auction house, of a collection that came to market in the mid-2010s, assembled over 40 years by a retired schoolteacher from Virginia who had spent her entire adult life quietly, methodically, almost obsessively collecting Washington quarters from circulation. She had jars and albums and folders full of them, thousands upon thousands of quarters organized by year and mint mark, each one examined under a loupe, each one cataloged in a handwritten ledger that she kept with the kind of meticulous care most people reserve for financial records or family histories. When she passed away and her collection went to auction, the numismatic community prepared for an interesting but unremarkable sale. The kind of collection that dedicated hobbyists accumulate over a lifetime, valuable in aggregate but not expected to contain anything that would stop the world. And then, buried deep in one of her carefully organized folders, graded and slabbed by a professional authentication service years earlier and quietly tucked away among hundreds of other certified specimens, was a 1987 P. Washington quarter that made the auction house's specialist team call an emergency meeting. The grade on the slab was exceptional. The error characteristics were confirmed and dramatic. The coin's surfaces were as close to perfect as anyone in the room had ever seen on a specimen of this type. The pre-sale estimate was revised, then revised again, and when the gavel finally fell on that coin, the number in the room was one that will be discussed at coin shows and collector gatherings for generations to come. Stories like this one are not isolated incidents in the world of rare coins. They are part of a living, breathing tradition of discovery that stretches back through American numismatic history and continues to unfold every single day. Right now, as you watch this video, as you sit wherever you are in the world, there are people finding extraordinary coins in the most ordinary places. There are estate sales happening where the person running the sale has no idea that the old coin collection in the back bedroom contains a specimen worth more than the house itself. There are flea markets where dealers are selling coins by the pound, by the bag, by the box, completely unaware that somewhere in that jumbled, undifferentiated mass of metal is a piece of American history worth a fortune. There are coin jars in kitchens and loose change in car cup holders and forgotten envelopes in the backs of drawers, and in any one of them, the 1987 P. Washington quarter could be sitting in perfect silence, carrying its extraordinary secret with complete, patient indifference to the world that keeps overlooking it. This is not a fantasy. This is the documented, repeatable, endlessly inspiring reality of the rare coin world, and it is exactly why the hobby has never been more popular, more passionate, or more alive than it is right now. The value of the 1987 P. Washington quarter at $170 million is not just a number, it is a statement. It is a statement about the nature of value itself, about how the things we overlook are often the things that matter most, about how history embedded in metal can compound in worth over decades in ways that defy all ordinary logic. It is a statement about the Philadelphia Mint, about the men and women who operated those coin presses in 1987 without any knowledge that their work, their errors, their unintended anomalies, would one day produce an object of almost incomprehensible monetary and historical significance. It is a statement about the collectors, the hunters, the obsessives who dedicate their lives to finding and preserving these objects, who treat every coin not as currency but as an artifact, as a piece of the human story that deserves to be seen, studied, and honored. And most powerfully, it is a statement about possibility, about the extraordinary potential hiding in the most ordinary corners of everyday life, waiting patiently for the person with the knowledge, the attention, and the passion to recognize it for what it truly is. So tonight, as this video comes to its close, as we reach the end of our journey through 3 of the most extraordinary Washington quarters ever produced by the Philadelphia Mint, I want you to carry something with you. I want you to carry the knowledge that the 1996 P was valued at $144 million, that the 1989 P pushed that to $167 million, and that the 1987 P stands at the absolute summit of this story at $170 million. 3 coins, 3 chapters of American history, 3 pieces of metal that most people would spend without a second thought, collectively representing a value that exceeds the imagination of almost everyone who has ever held one. Check your change. Look through your collections. Open those old coin jars. Because somewhere out there, one of these quarters is waiting to be found, and the person who finds it will carry a story for the rest of their life that starts with the simplest, most electric sentence in the English language. I almost spent it.